Greetings everyone, it is 2 o'clock, so we'll make a start. So welcome to the Cabinet meeting. Remember this is broadcast live via the website and can be archived so you can view it afterwards. As you know, we'll be here in person and it is now possible for officers who are presenting the reports to join us, but we're limiting the number of people here in the committee room to enable us all to keep a sensible distance apart. Very sensible, isn't it, Chris? Remember, microphones on before you speak and off when you've finished. I've got apologies which I want to record from Christine Radford, who's away on vacation. And agenda item 1 is the minutes on pages 5 to 18. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of June 2021 are taken as read, confirmed and signed. Deborah?
I'll second that.
All happy? Thank you very much. Urgent items, we have none. Declarations of interests. I know Mrs. Posnett wants to declare an interest in the Melton Mowbray Distributor South HIF report. Is that correct, Pam? Over to you.
Yes, I do. And I'd also like to declare a personal interest in item 8 as Vice Chair of Planning at Melton Borough Council.
Excellent. That's 9 and 8 for Pam. You want to leave the room, will you, Pam, when they're on?
Yes, because the one could be biased.
Right here. I'll wait for you to go out. So agenda item 4 is the MTFS, Medium Term Financial Strategy Monitoring Period 2. This is on pages 19 to 40. It's the position at the end of May. Shows a very worrying projected overspend, in addition to the usual problems of rising demand for services and, of course, our historically low funding. We've now have the continuing impact of COVID on the local economy and the increase in the price of construction materials to deal with. Some very significant risks in connection with the need to provide infrastructure to support economic growth here in Leicestershire. We've got Chris Tambini, who's Director of Corporate Resources. He'll present the report, then I'll be coming to you, Lee, to say a few words. So over to you, Chris.
Okay, thank you. We don't usually bring a report of period 2 monitoring formally to Cabinet, but given the financial pressure the Council is under, we've made an exception for this year. The report details that overall we're forecasting an 18.4 million revenue overspend at this kind of early stage in the year. And this is largely driven by overspend in adult social care, where the key pressures are in home care, both reflecting high unit costs and higher demand, and residential care kind of drop off in income. There are some other smaller overspends elsewhere, and these are detailed in the report, but I'd say the key pressure is around adult social care. The good news is we do have contingency to offset the overspend, and clearly we're going to be working as hard as we can to reduce it over the remainder of the year. However, it does seem that there's going to be little doubt that much of these pressures are going to continue for the rest of the year and probably well into next year and possibly the year after. I'll just mention a couple of other pressures that are outlined in the report. And if I could start with special education needs. I think Cabinet are very familiar with the deficit that we're now carrying. That's expected to rise to £27 million by the end of this financial year. However, the demand for the service does continue to rise. And it looks like the government reforms have been delayed yet again. We're expecting a report about this time. It looks like they've been pushed back to the autumn or maybe even the winter. This is a financial issue that's a major financial issue that's proving very difficult to resolve. I'm sure it's going to be one that's going to remain with us for some time. You mentioned capital in the introduction, Leader. This is a major issue, and it's kind of outlined in paragraph 57 of the report. The risk is around the costs of major construction projects escalating. We are doing a lot of work around updating the forecast of the major highway schemes. We're planning to report back in the autumn, but we do expect when we report that will show a worsening position, reflecting in part inflation and a construction industry that has supply chain pressures. The final point, which isn't actually detailed in the report, is a spending review. We're expecting a multi-year spending review in the autumn, but it's clear already that the Chancellor is concerned about the level of borrowing at a national level and also the general state of the public finances. He's already announced a public sector wage freeze, reduction in overseas aid, and is also considering changes to things like triple lock on pensions. And most commentators do predict a pretty tough spending round, and no doubt myself that this will just add to our pressures. At this stage, we're just asking Cabinet to note the report However, as we move into budget setting, we'll develop options to ensure that the county continues to have sound finances and can set a balanced budget.
Lee?
Thanks, Chair. As our Director has said, this is a tough financial position and it's the largest overspend ever forecast by Leicestershire County Council. I know Cabinet colleagues are working hard with officers to contain the position, and I remain confident that we'll be able to reduce the overspend. We will, having said that, it looks like we have a tough few years ahead. We will be bringing further updates to Cabinet in September, which will contain more detail on our spending plans and after Star Chamber meetings and how we will balance the budget. Despite the low funding, we are a council that has managed to maintain sound financials, and I have no doubt that we'll continue to do so. We will continue to push the case for fairer funding, and we are working closely with all of our MPs. Can I just give a special thanks to Andrew Bridgen and to Neil O'Brien for the work that they're doing. There's still lots of work to do, but a positive outcome and a speed resolution would have a very positive outcome and help our position considerably. I'm happy to move the motion on the order paper.
Thank you, Lee. Richard?
Thank you, Chairman. I will second that, but I will also just repeat those rather dire words: the largest overspend ever recorded by this county council. I think as those words sink in around us all in the county, it just goes once again to underline the situation that we face. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I have no more speakers. Can I have a show of hands in favour of the motion, please? Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris. Agenda item 5 is the Leicester and Leicestershire Economic Growth Strategy. This is on pages 41 to 92. It's a consultation on the strategy prepared on behalf of the Leicester and Leicestershire Enterprise Partnership, the LEP. Note the Scrutiny Commission considered this report last week and its comments are attached to the order paper for this meeting marked 5A. We've also got extra comments from Max, which are attached as 5B. We've got Tom Pennell with us, Assistant Chief Executive, who will present the report. Then I'll go to Peter Bedford, who has responsibility. Tom?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, work on an economic recovery strategy for Leicester and Leicestershire started earlier this year in response to the significant impact of the pandemic on businesses and employees across the city and county. And a strategy is also needed because there currently isn't in place a single strategy for the sub-region that sets out a vision for the economy and for economic sectors. So preparation of this strategy will resolve that. LEP directors have attended a series of workshops during which the content of the strategy has been discussed and considered a sort of a pre-consultation version of that on the 7th of June. And the council has been represented at these workshops by yourself, Leader, and also more recently by Mr. Bedford. You did receive as Cabinet a report on this issue at your meeting on the 22nd of June. That report informed you of officer observations on a pre-consultation version of the strategy, and in response to that, it was resolved that the LEP be asked to make adjustments to the strategy to take account of those comments. Some of those amendments have been incorporated into the version of the strategy in front of you today, but others haven't. Significant aspects of the strategy are welcomed and supported, but further amendments and adjustments could usefully be made to the strategy, and these are set out in paras 29 to 32, in particular at para 32. I won't go through all of those, but I'll just pick out some of the key shortcomings that we think need addressing. The strategy could more clearly set out the role of partners in delivering the vision, more accurately reflect economic opportunities and challenges across the area, but particularly in rural areas, be clearer in terms of inward investment opportunities, be clearer also about the role of town centres and market towns in supporting economic growth, and also be more explicit about the climate challenge that we face and the climate emergency declaration by this council, amongst others. As you mentioned, the Scrutiny Commission considered the draft strategy at its report last week. It was broadly supportive of the officer recommendations. The stakeholder consultation ends on the 30th of July. Departments are currently looking at the strategy in detail, so if any issues arise from those detailed considerations, those comments will be forwarded to the LEP, which will be meeting on the 19th of August to consider the responses received. Recommendations as on the order paper, including that the LEP be requested to revise the strategy to take account of the comments set out in paras 29 to 32.
Cheers, Tom. Peter.
Thank you, Leader. I think that's a great summary of the paper. So I attended a number of these workshops earlier in June after joining the LEP board, and there were some great ideas suggested there. And the Cabinet saw the first draft of this at the June meeting. Last week, I was pleased to attend the Scrutiny Commission's meeting at which this was discussed at some length, and there was some really constructive feedback from members from all sides of the political spectrum on the economic strategy. I think all members recognise the need to get this in place and for it to be clear and set out a clear vision for Leicestershire and the broader region. I think that the comments made around articulating the strategy in a clear and precise way is absolutely crucial. We don't want this paper to be sitting on a minister's desk or inbox for months and months, not being read because it simply isn't readable or the salient points aren't pulled out. I think some of the points that was made just a moment ago, particularly around this council's commitment to climate change or to reducing the impact of climate change and the climate emergency is really important. So I believe we need to really beef up that part of the economic strategy. I believe that the strategy could also be beefed up in terms of the role of market towns and how we further develop the rural economy, and also around HS2 and the implications that has for Leicester and Leicestershire. So I guess I see our role as being a constructive friend in the process to the LEP, and I think the comments that are made in the report and by the Scrutiny Commission, and indeed those by Mr Hunt, are constructive, and I very much hope that the LEP takes those on board, and I propose the motion on the order paper.
Thank you, Peter, and I'm happy to second it, and I think we do need to keep their focus on climate change, towns, rural issues and HS2, because I think they're probably missing one or two things in there. But I'm happy to second it. Anybody else wish to speak? Yes, Louise, good.
Yeah, I'm just pleased to see that we've picked up on the fact that rural and agriculture especially is in there to be addressed, because especially coming out of Brexit for the agricultural industry, and we've always been talking about rural proofing, and the government does as well. So I'm surprised that this hasn't been taken in full account.
Anything to add to that, Tom? You can see we want more rural, more towns, more climate change and HS2 in there.
Yes, no, nothing to add. I will just make sure that those comments get passed on to the LEP.
Thank you. All in favour? Thank you very much. Agenda item 6 is the Corporate Complaints and Compliments Annual Report 2021. This is on pages 93 to 118. It covers the period 1st of April of 20 to the end of March this year. Please note the Scrutiny Commission considered this report last week, and its comments are attached to the order paper for this meeting, March 6. We're pleased to see that the Scrutiny Commission recognised the difficulties posed by the pandemic to services such as school transport and our household and waste recycling sites, where staff have been doing their best to minimise disruption to residents. With us today, Simon Parsons, our Complaints and Information Manager, who will go through the report, and then I shall be going to you, Lee, because you've got responsibility. Simon, welcome.
Thank you, Leader. So just an overview really of the key findings from the Corporate Complaints Annual Report. As is set out in the report, there was a further 21% rise in corporate complaints during the year, up to 527, and that continues largely that rise seen in the last few years. There's really a few drivers behind that. Some is clearly driven by design changes that the pandemic brought about, waste and transport. I'll talk a little bit more about as to exactly why, but some is due to changes in guidance that sees some previously statutory social care complaints now being considered as corporate, and some is genuine growth. Despite the upward rising in complaints, the positive is that less of those translated into consideration and decisions by the local government and social care ombudsman, with a 14% decrease in decisions made and also a decrease in findings of maladministration. We did receive 2 public reports during the year, both of which have previously been to Cabinet, the details, so I won't go through those in any great detail, but those contributed to the overall increase in level of financial redress, although the figures set out in the report are worst case and likely to be less when we conclude negotiation with a nursery provider on one of those. Response times to complaints inevitably took a slight experienced some pressures during the height of the pandemic, but did remain fairly healthy throughout the year, with 77% resolved in 20 working days and 97% of them still within our policy maximum. In light of the wider pressures, those compare very well with neighbouring authorities that I speak to. In terms, I'll just pick out a couple of areas that saw particular rises. Travel and transport really affected by late guidance around how we could deliver that service in a COVID secure way, which led to a number of SEN students having delays in having their transport in place. Waste management, again, large numbers, but should be seen in the light of 580,000 appointments that were made last year for the waste sites. Inevitably, a few of those translated into issues with that process that saw that rise in complaints. I'll just touch slightly on the other area to talk about, SEN, which actually saw less complaints in the year, but again, is one definitely to keep an eye on. It is back on the increase. As already mentioned today, lots of pressures in the SEN area, some of that translating into complaints, and I think will continue to be a tricky area for the next couple of years in terms of managing those expectations and cost pressures. I'll talk very quickly around the 2 social care areas. They're included in the report for wider context. Adult social care saw a decrease last year. That really bucks the national trend slightly and is good evidence of local resolution. And children's social care feels fairly stable as well. So really the growth is in the corporate side only. A final comment really just on the other work that comes through. Lots of things that aren't actually considered as formal complaints set out on page 102 of the papers. And we work closely with customer services colleagues on that, and there'll be further work undertaken this year just to see if we can improve that slightly and just make sure those are going point to the direct places they need to. So the recommendation of the report is really for Cabinet to kind of note the increase in volumes and associated drivers of that.
Thank you, Simon. Lee?
Thank you, Chair. I was talking to Simon before the meeting, and it was interesting that this whole report from 1st of April to 31st of March this year covers a fully COVID year. And I think if you look at what we've dealt with, the pie chart on page 102 of the report covers 2,431 complaints, compliments and inquiries, but out of those 56% were actually compliments. So I think it's a real well done to the officers of this county council that we've kept Leicestershire going. And I think that really does come out. The Scrutiny Commission comments were really highlighted the bread and butter issues that we've all known about. And I think it'll be interesting when this report comes back next year as to see what that report's bringing. We almost get back to normal. So more than happy to propose the 2 motions on the order paper, Chair.
Good, and I'm more than happy to second them, and thank you for your good work down there, Simon. 21% increase in work with the same people is a credit to you. And sometimes I think, Simon, as well, I think people have had a little bit more time to complain. I'm not saying they shouldn't complain, but I think they've had a bit more time to complain because they've been at home. And of course, the waste issue has been problematic. You know, people haven't liked booking. And of course, as you pointed out, the transport issues have been difficult. But thanks for your good work, and I'm happy to second it. We have no other speakers. Can I ask for a show of hands in favour, please? Thanks, Simon. Next one, 7, cycling and walking strategy. This is on 119 to 226. It's the outcome of recent engagement on the draft strategy, seeking our approval for the final version. It goes without saying, we want to get more people cycling and walking by creating more networks and revamping existing routes. There have been over 2,000 responses to this engagement, which is a lot, and I'd like to thank everyone who took the time to comment. Please note we have comments from the Quorn Community Action Group for Walking and Cycling on this report, and they're attached to the order paper marked 7. We've got Anne Carruthers, Director of Environment and Transport, here to present the report. Then I'll be going to Ozzy as he has responsibility. Anne.
Thank you, Leader. This report seeks approval for our cycling and walking strategy for the county, an agreement for the next 2 local cycling and walking infrastructure plans to be developed. During 2020, government issued gear change, their new cycling strategy, and also new design guidance in relation to cycling. And that indicated a step change and push from government in terms of the walking and cycling agenda. When they did that, they also made clear that if local authorities were to access government funding for cycling and walking, we had to demonstrate we complied with both those documents, their strategy and their design guide. In response, we developed a draft cycling and walking strategy and carried out engagement in the early part of this year. We took that, as part of that engagement exercise, we took the draft document to the Environment and Transport Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and their comments are at paragraph 43. We received over 2,400 responses to our consultation. That was one of the biggest responses we've ever had, and that's summarised for you in the report, paragraphs 45 to 52. And those responses have shaped the final strategy before you today at Appendix A, Part 1. That is supported by an action plan, which we very much see as a live document. We'll review that every year. That's Part 2, Appendix A, apologies, of your document. The local cycling and walking infrastructure plans, they are detailed studies of local areas that sit below the strategy itself, and they will identify what's needed in terms of the interventions to create a cycling and walking network for that specific area. They will then populate the action plan itself, so it will continue to be, as I say, a live document as we develop these local cycling and walking infrastructure plans. We're proposing the next 2 areas for those are Loughborough, firstly, and the southeast quadrant of the Leicester principal urban area. We're also going to undertake a review of our highway design guide to ensure that it reflects that latest design guidance from government, and hence, we're demonstrating we're complying with that requirement. In terms of resourcing, the development of the strategy itself and the first 2 infrastructure plans to support that and the data collection around that is being funded through our own resources, as well as 230,000 from DFT, Department for Transport, for this current year. However, to deliver the infrastructure required within those infrastructure plans and carry out behaviour change work to bring the public along with us on this, we very much anticipate that will primarily be funded through developer contributions and applications to government for government funding. The government is clear we need to show we have a robust strategy in place in order to be successful, though, hence us bringing the strategy to you today. One final point I'll make then, as the leader has alluded, there is the representations made from the Quorn Community Action Group for Cycling and Walking, and particularly note their comments about the aspirations and ambition for the targets of the strategy itself. Again, I would come back to the fact that we see it as a live document. If we are being particularly successful at our targets and our delivery of the action plan, we will of course revise and look to stretch on those. And the other thing I would say is we're very much looking to engage with action groups such as this so that we can learn from their expertise for the local area and work with them given their enthusiasm around this agenda as well. Finally, I would draw the Cabinet's attention to the slightly amended recommendations on the order paper. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Anne. Ollie?
Thank you, Leader. I propose the cycling and walking strategy. We all know that cycling and walking is a very popular strategy. It's very popular across the country, and during the last 18 months, while we've had this pandemic, it has been extremely popular with residents. It's also been extremely popular with government actually putting money into cycling and walking across the country. Our officers have worked very hard on this strategy, and I commend them for the work that they've put in, and I recommend it to the council. And I can only say one thing: let's all get together and take to our bikes and our feet and let's go walking.
Thank you very much, Ozzy. I'll be biking when you are. Louise?
I'm very happy to second this from the health and wellbeing perspective. It's also going to be have a positive effect on air quality. I would encourage all cyclists to use the cycle tracks wherever they are for their safety, but also for everybody on the road. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No other speakers. Moved by Ozzy, seconded by Louise. Hand in favour, please. Thank you. Agenda item 8 is the development of an interim Melton Mowbray transport strategy. This is on 227 to 422. It's seeking our approval for the final version of the interim strategy. It says here, although it's an interim strategy, it's a very comprehensive document, and it is intended to be submitted to the government with the business case for the North and East Melton Distributor Road in the autumn. Again, we've got Anne here to present it, and again, it'll be Ozzy to speak to it. Anne?
Thank you. Yes, this report is seeking approval so that we can submit it, as the leader said, with the full business case supporting the North and East Melton Mowbray Distributor Road to DFT in the autumn. We carried out engagement on the draft strategy from January to March this year, and it sets out the whole host of package of transport initiatives needed to address the congestion issues in Melton Mowbray and support the level of growth set out in the Melton local plan. We started work on this as far back as 2015. However, the opportunity for funding via government for that north and east section of the MMDR arose, which has caused delays to the development work on the strategy itself. The interim strategy covers how to manage traffic movement across the town, how to support further cycling and walking and active travel, and public transport use, as well as supporting the need for infrastructure, and it sets out that case there. We are submitting it with the business case, as I've said, in the autumn, and the reason it's interim, however, is the fact that we are in the position we don't yet know the kind of medium term to longer term impacts on travel and movement from COVID. We know in the short term there's been dips and changes in traffic and traffic levels, as well as patterns across the day. However, we need to see how that settles down. And the other reason we're retaining it as an interim strategy is because Melton Borough Council have town centre regeneration proposals that are emerging, and when they are implemented, it's likely they'll change traffic patterns across the town as well. So we want to be able to reflect that in the future, hence it being an emerging strategy. Key themes from the engagement exercise are set out in the report for you, paragraphs 52 to 53. And again, we took this to our Environment and Transport Scrutiny Committee. So the final interim strategy is before you for approval, and with the recommendations set out in the order paper.
Thank you, Anne. Ozzy?
Thank you, Leader. Anne has adequately covered the actual strategy, what we've worked across, and I propose the motion that we take it forward. It is an interim strategy, as Anne said, and we look forward to working across with Melton on this.
And I'll second it. Pam?
I just wanted to say I'm really pleased it is only an interim strategy, because it is important that we can look at what Melton Borough Council are planning on doing with the regeneration that they want to do in the town. And also we take on board comments that some of the residents of Melton has made. So I look forward to when we've both done the work, we can get together and look at what is the right way. Thank you.
Okay, we have no other speakers. All in favour, please. Thank you. Agenda item 9 is the Melton Distributor Road. Pam Posnick wants to leave the meeting, so I'll just tell you what it is while she goes out. So the Melton Mowbray Distributor Road Southern Section Housing Infrastructure Fund Grant. This is on pages 423 to 426 and supplementary pages 3 to 8. Pam has now left the room. So this item concerns the latest position regarding to the HIF grant offered by Homes England in respect of the southern leg. You've seen the supplementary report circulated early today. Johnson, the Chief, will introduce the report, and he will have Lauren Haslam with us, who's joined us, Director of Law and Governance, and Chris Tambini, Director of Corporate Resources. After officers have spoken, I'll be inviting Joe Orson, the leader of Melton Borough Council, who's attending this meeting, and he's asked to speak. So if you just hang on a minute, Joe, till they've finished, I'll call you forward, and you'll have to sit where there's a microphone. Probably Chris will move for you. So, Chief, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. The latest position is in paragraph 16 to 18 of the supplementary report. The discussions with Melton Borough Council and with Homes England, and that a recommendation can now be made to approve conditionally the acceptance of the HIF grant by the Cabinet in September. If I could turn to the recommendations, which are paragraph 2 of the supplementary report. That conditionality relates to the welcome indication from the leader of Melton, respective of an increase in its cap on mitigating the financial risk to the County Council, and the Borough Council formally approving that, and the supplementary planning document and master plans to the satisfaction of the County Council. Recommendation 5.2, which is on the second page, refers to discussions with Homes England relating to the terms of the agreement between the County Council and Homes England and to the cost of the scheme. Lauren and Chris will comment briefly on those, but the recommendations are those on the order paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren first, yeah.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, as the Chief Exec's outlined, recommendation 5.2 is intended to capture the issues that are still outstanding in relation to the grant determination agreement. As members know, that's the agreement between Homes England and the County Council setting out the terms upon which the grant is made. There are a number of warranties and representations within the agreement which the Council needs to satisfy itself are appropriate to protect the Council's interest, and the dialogue with Homes England and their legal advisors is ongoing, and that's why there is that conditional element to the recommendations that Mr. Tillett has outlined. Thank you, Leader.
Seems easy. Chris?
Yeah, just make a couple of points. Pleased we've reached kind of broad agreement with Melton on the schools funding. But if I just talk a little bit around the road funding, and in some respect, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier, that there are kind of key risks around major construction projects at the moment, and we do expect the £35 million estimate in the MTFS for the cost of this scheme to rise. We're working to refine the estimate, and we'll discuss this with Homes England, who are the key funder of the project. And by September, we'll come out to Cabinet with an updated estimate and clear proposals about how we're going to fund if there is any increase in the potential cost.
Thank you. Chris, do you mind moving so Joe can stand up by the microphone because we won't hear him? Okay. So we've got Joe, who's here today as leader of Melton Borough Council. Joe, over to you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Nick. I warmly welcome the recommendations to accept conditionally the Housing Infrastructure Fund grant in support of delivering the southern leg of the MMDR. Through its local plan and corporate strategy, Melton Borough Council and its partners have set out an ambitious plan for sustainable growth in Melton. We have always recognised the significant cost of the infrastructure required to support this growth, and have always done what we can to support the County Council as both the Highway Authority and the Education Authority. Reaching an agreement with Homes England and securing a HIF grant will assist the County Council in funding this infrastructure, but we recognise it will not cover all costs and significant financial risks will remain. As a Borough Council, we want to do all we can to help manage these risks, which is why we are prepared to enter into a groundbreaking agreement and stretch our resources, whilst ensuring we do not jeopardise our financial future. I can confirm we will underwrite any shortfall in contributions arising from matters within our control up to a maximum cap of 1.75 million. Our teams now need to develop a detailed agreement, but this remains a substantial commitment from Melton Borough Council and one we are prepared to make given the huge importance of delivering the road to our communities. Tomorrow, my Cabinet will consider our draft developer contributions SPD, which prioritises the recovery of contributions for County Council highways and education above all other infrastructure requirements. Following that meeting, statutory consultation will commence, and we would anticipate being in a position to approve the SPD at our council meeting in September. My council is also committed to adopting new and updated master plans before the end of 2021 for both the northern and southern neighbourhoods, building on the work previously agreed by both councils in December 2020. Nick, I trust this provides a clear demonstration of Melton Borough Council's commitment to this project and our support to the County Council in securing the infrastructure Melton needs. As you work to reach agreement with Homes England, my team will work closely with yours to ensure these documents are brought forward so that you are in a position to accept the HIF at your Cabinet meeting on the 17th of September. Thank you very much, and apologies for the voice as well.
It's all right, Joe. Very positive remarks. Thank you very much. I will move the recommendations on the order paper. Deborah?
Very happy to second. I just want to put on record my thanks to our Melton Borough Council and to their leader, Joe Awesome, for working with us through this.
No other speakers, all in favour of Melton? Thank you. Thank you very much, Joe. Can we get let Pam come back in now? Okay, welcome back, Pam. So 10 is provision of short breaks and supported living services, pages 427 to 446. It's a report that outlines the outcome of consultation on proposed changes to the provision of the Council's in-house short break services and seeks our approval for the proposed way forward. There's been quite extensive informal and formal engagement with service users and their families about this. I think it's fair to say that the Adults and Communities Overview and the Adults and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee, we looked at the proposals last month, appreciated this support and supports the proposals. So we've got John Wilson here today, who's the Director of Adults and Communities. He'll present, and then afterwards I'll have to speak because Christine's on vacation. Okay, John.
Thank you, Leader. So as you say, in March, Cabinet received a report outlining proposals for the future use of the Trees residential care home in Hinckley and the development of the site at Cropson Drive in Colville, and agreed to commence a consultation exercise based on closing Smith Crescent in Colville for short break provision, expanding the facilities at the Trees in Hinckley to provide a total of 12 short breaks beds, and to withdraw the current proposals for the development of the Cropson Drive site pending the outcome of the consultation. So today's report provides Cabinet with the outcome of that consultation. As you said, in advance of the launch of the formal consultation, discussions with people who were directly affected by the proposals were held, and they took place to ensure that their particular concerns could be captured and highlighted. A total of 15 discussions with relatives and carers of people who use Smith Crescent took place, covering 16 of the 17 people who access the service on a normal basis. The family of one person who had previously used that service advised that their relative now accesses the Trees anyway, and therefore no further engagement was required. Unsurprisingly, perhaps, the majority of those who use the existing services wished to continue to do so, and their comments are outlined in paragraph 27 to 31 of today's report. Staff who work in the service were also consulted, and a summary of their comments is included at paragraph 32. The 6-week formal consultation took place between 10th of May and 20th of June, comprising a questionnaire on the proposals which was available on the Council's website and by post. The consultation elicited 43 responses, and the full consultation report is appended to today's report. In summary, the outcome suggested that the local service in Colville should be retained, that the existing Smith Crescent building should either be refurbished or brought up to standard, or a replacement facility should be built. There was concern that the distance at alternatives at Hinckley, Melton and Wigston were too far for people to travel, and concerns that the proposals would have a negative impact on those who currently access Smith Crescent. And whilst acknowledging these concerns, officers do consider that suitable alternative provision is available for people who have previously accessed the short breaks in Colville. There are currently 16 people who would usually use those services, half of whom live over 5 miles from the service and 3 of whom live over 10 miles from the service. The existing Smith Crescent site is unsuitable, and it's not considered economically viable to either refurbish the existing site or redevelop the site. It's acknowledged that people may need to travel further to access short breaks, but that wouldn't be inconsistent with the travel distances to other services in the county, in Melton and in Hinckley, for example. And the council would ensure that suitable travel arrangements were in place to support people where required. The continuity of care and support arrangements is very important to families, and it was noted that any transition would be undertaken in a planned way, with day and overnight visits arranged and support provided by Smith Crescent site staff to ensure that individual arrangements were put in place well in advance. The consultation also highlighted the importance of respite care and the need for short breaks provision. And the proposed utilisation of the trees as a short break site would see an increase in the overall provision in the county from 22 to 24 beds, thereby increasing the overall availability of short breaks. In conclusion, whilst acknowledging the concerns raised through the consultation and engagement process, it is considered that the council's current financial position, the inability to secure an economically viable scheme in Colville, and that the refurbished facilities in Hinckley can provide additional short breaks capacity. Officers believe that the proposed recommendation should be taken forward, and in doing so, we will ensure that personalised transition arrangements are put in place to support affected people. Thank you.
Thank you. I certainly think you did a lot of very good consultation there, John. Thank you. I'll move the recommendations. Deborah?
Thank you. I think you've just covered that there's been a really full consultation about the services, the short breaks and the supported living. I know there's been a lot of disappointment raised about the decision to not continue with the short break facilities in Colville, but the newly refurbished facility in Hinckley, along with the facilities in Melton and Wigston, will increase our bed numbers and provide a much nicer place for service users. So very happy to second this proposal.
Thank you. No other speakers? Show of hands, please. Thank you. Thank you, John. 11, shared care record 447 to 454. This is proposals for the development of a shared care record to deliver integrated health and care services. John's still here and he's going to explain. John.
Thank you. So as previously reported to Cabinet, the government have made clear their intention to establish integrated care systems across England by 2022. Subsequently, the Secretary of State has stated that all ICSs should have a shared care record in place by September of this year. And in June, the government published a draft strategy on shaping health and social care data, which is due to be enacted later this year. The establishment of a shared care record will form an integral part of the medium-term objectives of the integrated care system. It'll enable care and clinical staff to access real-time health and care information across care providers and between different operational systems. It does this by sharing appropriate information from various health and social care systems holding that information. Records will be kept securely and confidentially and would only be able to access by appropriate clinical and care staff within current legal frameworks. The Adults and Communities Department currently operates a number of integrated care services, working with partners using different IT systems and hosting different care records. Staff working within integrated care teams struggle to access each of the systems, information and data. As the Council progresses integrated approaches to health and care, The need to share and have access to the correct and timely information will be key to supporting people effectively. A shared care record will help to ensure that people receive the right care at the right time. It'll help prevent adverse incidents occurring, and it'll mean that people will not need to share and repeat their personal details multiple times to different professionals. Across Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland, it's been agreed to aim for implementation of a shared care record by September of this year, using an existing exemplar tool developed in Yorkshire and Humber. Officers from the County Council have been engaged with this development at a variety of strategic and technical boards representing adult social care, and corporate IT colleagues are cited on the work, and we're anticipated that this will become part of their future work plan. A more formal stakeholder commitment to engage in the project is now being sought, and to facilitate this, a local charter has been drafted for sign-off by all partners. The local charter outlines a minimal set of principles as outlined in paragraph 29 of the report. Cabinet is asked to note the good intention in developing the charter and support the core principles of the charter. However, principles relating to funding do potentially provide for an unquantifiable commitment to resource, which may lead to either financial risk, misinterpretation, or discord between the partners. It's recommended, therefore, that the Council should signal its intention to support the development of the SCR while seeking to clarify the commitment required to sign up to the Charter. The record presents a key step forward in delivering integrated health and care, and it's important that the County Council remains a committed partner. However, the Council cannot make an open-ended commitment to provide resources which have not yet been quantified, and which could present a risk to the authority's medium-term financial position. As such, it's recommended that Cabinet agrees to support the Charter in principle, but asks myself as Director of Adult and Communities and the Director of Corporate Resources to agree a suitable form of words with partners which limits the financial and strategic risk to the Council. Thank you.
Sounds like a very good idea to me, John. I'm perfectly happy to move the motion, especially with the caveats you've just outlined. Deborah?
Thank you. Very happy to second the motion on the order paper. And again, I'm really welcome this, and I hope we can get over the line with the local charter for collaboration.
No other speakers, all in favour, please. Thank you, John. 12, development of a 0 to 19 healthy child programme. Again, proposed consultation 455 to 497. Obviously, we need to start the consultation on the proposed service model about early intervention and prevention of public health programme for all children and families in the county. So we've got Mike Sands here, as the Director of Public Health, and Kelly Marie Evans, Public Health Consultant. They'll present the report. Then I shall be going to Louise Richardson, who's the lead member for this area. So are you doing it, Mike, or is Kelly doing it? You.
Going to be brief words from me, and I'm going to hand over to Kelly.
Okay, we see plenty of you here, Mike, so welcome. But we don't see much of you here, Kelly, so welcome.
Yeah, for once, I won't do a COVID briefing. Before I hand over to Kelly, I think this is one of the things, I guess, where we're picking up business as usual. Not that COVID's gone away, but we do need to get back into what we used to do. The initial contract for the 0 to 19 service is not the first time we've recommissioned it. It should have been in place for 1st of April 2022. So we've had to extend the contract for 5 months over the course of the last few months, as we just pick up the reins after it, obviously COVID-related hiatus, if you like, last year. Kelly has done a great range of kind of pre-consultation engagement to help us inform the proposed service model, which we will go out for consultation for. But at that stage, I'll hand over to Kelly and get her to take you through the key points.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so the Healthy Child programme, as hopefully you're aware, is an evidence-based programme, a universal programme, covering elements of antenatal services up to the age of 19. And elements of that programme are mandated that we have to commission or provide through the public health grant conditions. And you can find details of the existing service within Appendix B of the pack. The current service provider is Leicestershire Partnership Trust, and as Mike mentioned, the contract finishes August 2022. So to date, we've been looking at the data, done some informal engagement with key stakeholders to understand what they think the strengths and the areas of improvement are for the existing contract, and we've been looking at what other areas in the country are currently doing. taken into consideration some of the national recommendations that have come out, particularly around the 1001 days, and how we could improve our service to embed some of those. So we've used all this information to try and inform our proposed model. Now we'd like to seek permission to go out to consult on that model. So you can see the full details of the proposed model on page 461 and again in Appendix D. But in summary, we would like to go out to consult on antenatal to secondary, well, transition to secondary school age service, so 0 to 10/11 age, and a lot of those services are already mandated, so there's not that much flexibility on what we can and can't do. But hopefully looking at what current information we've got and using this consultation, we will be able to develop the service to improve it for the residents that need to use it. But what this does provide us with is a massive opportunity to actually look at that secondary school age service differently and actually look at what our local needs are. Elements of this service aren't currently mandated, but we've been looking working with head teachers and conducting a health-related behaviour questionnaire in schools, so getting the voice of the child to understand what they think the local needs are for themselves, and obviously speaking to the parents. So again, the details are within the pack, but we would welcome the opportunity to improve how the secondary school age service is delivered based on our local priorities for children and young people, basically. So.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. So just to summarise from me, I think it's a really important one, this. It feels like when we've been out before, we've essentially not changed the model, but we've crimped and tweaked and trimmed it to save money. Fundamentally, the idea of Kelly of splitting it into the bits that we do need to do as is, because they're delivered as part of the mandatory function, the 0 to 10 bit, but then look at what we really do with the secondary school age ones, how it aligns with our own services within children and family services, and respond to the needs of what children and adults would want to see in Leicestershire. Again, doubtless there'll be a cost saving in there somewhere, but I think the important thing is actually wanting to really look at the model and come up with something worthwhile instead of just doing the same that we've done before. So I look forward to the consultation if Cabinet approves it, and we'll see what comes back.
Yep. Louise?
Thank you, Nick. It's really important that we do go out and consult on these proposals. We need to pick up and improve on our offer, and we need to be developing healthy and active children, supporting young people, vulnerable young people, and to improve the health inequalities, and to also promote self-care. We need to ensure we retain and recruit skilled professionals along the pathway, and by ensuring we support children and families from 0 to 19, and including obviously antenatal as well, hopefully as they move into adulthood, they retain that healthy lifestyle. So I'm very happy to propose the motion as stated on the order paper.
That's good, Louise. Deborah?
Thank you. Important piece of work, and I really welcome the additions proposed for the service that have just been outlined, and I particularly like the proposal of splitting the service model into the 2 different age groups, at 0 to 10 and the 11 plus. I really hope the consultation receives a large amount of responses, and I look forward to seeing the results. And just to pick up on a point that Kelly's just made there, really good to hear that the voice of the child's been included in the proposals that you're going out for. So that, I think that's really key to how we deliver those services. Thank you, and very happy to second the motion.
Pretty ringing endorsements there for you, Mike and Kelly. All in favour? Thank you. 13, exception to contract procedure rules, urgent action taken by the Chief in relation to the appointment of the supplier to provide free school meal vouchers during the summer term. Few papers, 495 to 498. Chris?
Well, I must admit, I was just about to say what you just said. So, I mean, it's a bit of a technical report. We got a late funding announcement for the funding for that free school meals over the summer. We only had a few weeks before the schools broke up in Leicestershire, so we needed a contract exception.
Yep, I remember it well. I'll move the motion on the green order papers. Nothing more to say. I mean, they've eaten all the food now. Deborah?
Yeah, I was going to say the same. Yeah, no, it needs to be made, the decision. So, yeah, happy to second the motion.
All in favour, please show. Thank you. 14 is another one. Exception to contract procedure rules, urgent action taken by the Chief in relation to the extension of an existing contract for an electronic roster system. Who's doing this? Oh, John, it's you.
Thank you. Yes, we are heavily reliant on having an electronic roster system in adult social care in order that we can circulate and update information to staff in real time in order to manage demand. We have an existing system that was procured through Advanced Business Solutions in 2013 and was reduced to be replaced in March 2020. We had a procurement process. It followed the standard process. A new supplier was awarded the contract. There then followed a period of difficulties with the implementation of the new system, causing significant delays. And further testing in November 2020 found the system was still subject to significant errors. Further work to resolve these couldn't be done without more slippage and significant risk of not having a roster in place by March 21. So following lengthy discussions between the council and the new provider, it was concluded that the supplier had failed to deliver a working system, and there was no confidence that they would be able to do so before the target date of 31st of March of this year. The contract with that new supplier was therefore terminated with formal notice given in November. The original supplier, Advanced, were contacted regarding potential for a further extension to the current contract, and this was negotiated for 2 years, provided that a purchase order was received by Advanced no later than the 15th of February of this year. The contract exception request was prepared to take up the new contract extension with Advanced. However, it was not appreciated at that time that the exception in this instance required agreement from the Chief Executive and therefore a subsequent report to advise Cabinet. And that's the reason for bringing it today. Thank you.
Happy to move it. Deborah?
Happy to second.
All in favour? Thank you. Thank you, John. Items referred from overview and scrutiny, we have none. Urgent items, which I've decided to take as urgent, we have none. So this is the end of the open session of the Cabinet meeting. So thank you for watching. I now need to move. As defined in paragraphs 3.10 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, and that in all circumstances the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. I move. Deborah?
I'll second.
Show of hands in favour, please. Thank you, and we've now got to wait till we get the nod that